The Universal Academy's gymnasium looked like someone had thrown a medical facility, a playground, and a torture chamber into a blender and hit the nightmare setting. Holographic displays showed safety warnings in 17 different languages, most of which boiled down to please don't die during physical education. Marcus Webb stood at the entrance, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, watching his alien classmates prepare for what they optimistically called basic fitness assessment. The sight would have been hilarious if it weren't so pathetic. A group of Zentari students, tall, graceful beings who resembled walking orchids with too many limbs, were carefully stretching their delicate appendages while their personal medical drones hovered nearby, ready to administer emergency nutrients at the first sign of exertion. One of them, a particularly fragile specimen named Veltar, was actually wearing what appeared to be a full-body shock absorber suit. "Are you kidding me?" Marcus muttered under his breath. This is supposed to be gym class, not a geriatric ward. Nearby, 3 KEF students, squat, rock-like beings from a low-gravity world, were struggling to attach anti-gravity compensators to their limbs. Without the devices, they could barely move in the Academy's standard gravity, which was about half of Earth's normal. Marcus had grown up in gravity twice as strong as what these mighty warriors considered crushing. The instructor, Professor Quinda, floated into the gymnasium on her repulsion platform. She was a vegan, not the Earth kind that avoided meat, but the alien kind that looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a disco ball. Her tentacles writhed nervously as she surveyed her students through compound eyes that probably cost more than Marcus's entire education. "Welcome, young beings, to survival physical training," she announced, her translator making her sound like a concerned grandmother. "Today we will be conducting basic endurance and strength assessments to determine your species' physical limitations." Marcus snorted. Physical limitations. Right. A Thylorian student. Imagine a praying mantis that had been stretched through a funhouse mirror, raised one of its 4 arms. "Professor, will there be medical supervision? My family physician recommends I avoid any activity that might elevate my heartbeat above 50% of maximum." "Of course, dear Clixen," Professor Quinda replied soothingly. "We have a full medical team standing by, complete with emergency stasis pods and trauma surgeons." Marcus looked around the gym again. Emergency stasis pods. For gym class. These people wouldn't survive 5 minutes on a human playground, let alone an actual death world like Earth. "Now then," the professor continued, "our first assessment will be a simple cardiovascular endurance test. You will walk, and I emphasize walk, not run, around the gymnasium track for a distance of 1 standard kilometer. Medical drones will monitor your vital signs, and you are to stop immediately if you experience any discomfort whatsoever. Walk 1 kilometer. Marcus ran that distance as a warm-up before his actual morning jog, which was usually about 10 kilometers through terrain that would give these aliens nightmares. A Rigelian student, sort of like a blue-skinned elf with gills, raised her web hand. "Professor, what if we become dehydrated? My species requires constant moisture regulation." "Excellent question, Cyrana. We have hydration stations every 50 meters, along with electrolyte replacement pods and emergency oxygen supplies." Marcus couldn't help himself. He started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but full-blown, doubled-over, tears-in-his-eyes belly laugh that echoed through the gymnasium like thunder. Every alien head or head equivalent turned to stare at him. The silence that followed was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Professor Quinda's tentacles stopped writhing. "Is there something amusing about physical fitness, Cadet Webb?" Marcus wiped his eyes, still grinning. "Oh, I'm sorry. It's just, you guys are treating a stroll like it's climbing Mount Everest. Do you need me to call an ambulance before we start?" The Zentari student, Veltar, actually flinched. "Mount Everest? Isn't that the legendary death peak on the human homeworld? The one where the atmospheric pressure is so low that lesser beings simply expire?" "Lesser beings?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Buddy, humans climb that mountain for fun. We have 8-year-olds who've made it to the summit." A collective gasp rippled through the assembled students. Clixen, the mantis-like Thylorian, made a chittering sound that his translator interpreted as horrified disbelief. "8-year-old offspring? Clixen stammered. Ascending a geological formation that exceeds breathable atmosphere limits? For recreational purposes? Among other things, yeah. Marcus dropped his duffel bag and started doing casual stretches. Nothing fancy, just touching his toes and rolling his shoulders. Several aliens stepped backward, as if his movements were somehow threatening. Professor Quinda floated closer, her compound eyes focusing on Marcus with what might have been scientific curiosity or mortal terror. Cadet Webb, perhaps we should discuss your unique physiological requirements before beginning the assessment. Unique? Marcus straightened up from his stretch, and a few more aliens shuffled backward. Lady, there's nothing unique about me. I'm just a regular human. Slightly below average, actually. The silence that greeted this statement was deafening. Sirena, the Regalian, spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Below average? Yeah, I was never much of an athlete back home. Couldn't make varsity anything. Pretty standard stuff for a Deathworlder, I guess. Every translator in the gymnasium started working overtime, creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electronic beeps as they struggled to process the concept of a standard Deathworlder. Veltar, still wrapped in his shock-absorbing suit, made a sound like air escaping from a punctured balloon. Deathworlder, you are from a Category 12 hostile environment. Category 12? Marcus frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Professor Quinda's tentacles resumed their nervous writhing, but at triple speed. Category 12 classification indicates a planetary environment so hostile that natural selection has produced sapient life forms capable of surviving conditions that will be instantly lethal to 98.7% of known intelligent species. Marcus blinked. Oh, well, when you put it like that, I guess Earth does sound kind of rough. But it's not that bad once you get used to the predators, whether disasters, toxic plants, venomous animals, crushing gravity, UV radiation, and occasional mass extinction events. 3 aliens actually fainted. The remaining students began backing away from Marcus as if he were a ticking bomb. Medical drones swarmed around the unconscious bodies, checking vital signs and administering emergency stimulants. Perhaps, Professor Quinda said carefully, we should modify your assessment parameters, Cadet Webb. Modify them how? Well, clearly the standard physical fitness requirements would be insufficient for someone of your background. We'll need to design something more appropriate for a being who evolved in a hellscape of constant mortal peril. Marcus looked around the gymnasium, taking in hydration stations, medical drones, emergency oxygen supplies, and enough safety equipment to stock a small hospital. Then he looked at his classmates, delicate flower people, rock creatures who needed anti-gravity assistance to move, and fish people who required constant moisture monitoring. A slow, wicked grin spread across his face. You know what? You're absolutely right. The standard assessment will be way too easy for me. He cracked his knuckles, and several aliens jumped at the sound. How about we make this interesting? Professor Quinda's hover platform bobbed nervously. Interesting how? Simple. Instead of walking 1 kilometer, I'll run 10. No medical supervision, no hydration stops, no safety equipment. Just me, the track, and whatever passes for endurance around here. The gymnasium fell silent, except for the humming of medical drones and the occasional whimper from a particularly sensitive student. Clixen raised a shaking arm. 10 kilometers? Without medical supervision? Are you attempting to commit ritualistic suicide in front of witnesses? Marcus laughed again, and the sound made everyone flinch. Suicide? Dude, 10K is barely getting warmed up. Back home, that's what we call a morning jog. A morning jog, Sirena repeated faintly. Your species engages in voluntary cardiovascular stress as a daily routine. Some of us do it twice a day, Marcus said cheerfully. Morning jog. Evening run. Maybe hit the gym in between for some weightlifting. More aliens fainted. The medical team was starting to look overwhelmed. Professor Quinda made a decision. Very well, Cadet Webb. If you insist on this demonstration, we will accommodate your request. However, I must warn you that the Academy's insurance policy does not cover death by voluntary self-destruction. Don't worry about it, Marcus said, pulling off his jacket to reveal a simple t-shirt and shorts. I've got Earth insurance. It covers everything up to and including acts of cosmic horror. He walked the starting line, ignoring the way his classmates scattered like startled birds. The track stretched out before him, a nice, safe, cushioned surface with gentle curves and absolutely no obstacles, hazards, or predators. "This is going to be fun," he muttered. Professor Quinda floated to what she clearly considered a safe distance. Medical teams, stand by for emergency intervention. Trauma surgeons, prepare for worst-case scenarios. Counseling staff, ready to grief support protocols for his classmates. Marcus settled into a runner's stance, muscles coiled and ready. Around the gymnasium, aliens huddled together like frightened sheep, their medical drones forming protective barriers between them and the terrifying human who was about to demonstrate exactly why Earth was classified as a death world. "On your mark," Professor Quinda called out, her voice shaking. Marcus grinned, showing teeth that several aliens interpreted as a predatory display. "Get set." He took a deep breath, feeling his heart rate settle into the steady rhythm that had carried him through countless runs on Earth's hostile surface. "Go." Marcus exploded forward like a rocket, his feet pounding the track with a rhythm that sounded like machine gun fire to alien ears accustomed to gentle, measured movements. His breathing remained steady and controlled as he settled into an easy pace that would have killed most of his classmates from pure cardiovascular shock. Behind him, the gymnasium erupted into chaos. Aliens screamed, medical alarms blared, and Professor Quinda started issuing frantic emergency protocols over the intercom. "All units, we have a code red biological hazard in Gymnasium 7. The human is moving at combat velocity. Repeat, the Deathworlder is exhibiting predatory locomotion patterns." Marcus couldn't hear the panic behind him. He was in his zone now, muscles working with the easy efficiency of machine, designed by evolution to chase down prey across endless distances. His breathing was steady, his form perfect, his pace sustainable for hours. This was going to be even better than he'd hoped. By the time Marcus completed his first kilometer, half the alien students had been evacuated to the medical bay. The remaining ones watched in horrified fascination as the human maintained what they could only describe as an impossible death pace, without showing any signs of distress. "His cardiovascular system should have collapsed by now," whispered Dr. Zefka, the Academy's chief medical officer, who had arrived with a full trauma team. "According to our models, no biological entity can sustain this level of exertion without immediate system failure." Professor Quinda's tentacles were knotted with stress. "Perhaps our models are incomplete." Marcus flashed past him again, completing his second kilometer. He wasn't even breathing hard. In fact, he looked like he was enjoying himself. Several Zentari students made prayers to their flower gods, convinced they were witnessing some form of demonic possession. "You know what?" Marcus called out as he rounded the turn, his voice carrying easily despite his pace. "This is too slow. Mind if I pick it up a bit?" Before anyone could answer or feint, Marcus shifted gears. His already intimidating pace doubled, then tripled. His feet barely seemed to touch the track as he flowed around the curves with predatory grace. Clixen, who had somehow avoided fainting thus far, made a sound like grinding gears. He's accelerating. The Deathworlder is accelerating while maintaining maximum exertion. This violates several laws of biology. "Maybe not as biology," Dr. Zefka muttered, frantically taking readings with every instrument at his disposal. His heart rate is actually decreasing. His oxygen consumption is stabilizing. This creature is built for sustained pursuit hunting. The realization hit the assembled aliens like a cold slap. Pursuit hunting. The nightmare scenario that kept herbivorous species awake at night, huddled together in fear of the monsters that could run forever, never tiring, never stopping, until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. Sirana made a gurgling sound that her translator rendered as existential terror. "We're prey animals. All of us. We're prey animals watching an apex predator demonstrate hunting behavior." Marcus completed his 5th kilometer and decided to have some fun. As he passed a group of traumatized aliens, he flashed them a cheerful wave. "Halfway there," he shouted. "Anyone else want to join in? The water's fine." 3 more aliens fainted. Professor Quinda activated the emergency intercom. "Security, Please report to Gymnasium 7. We may need containment protocols for a Class 12 biological hazard. Containment protocols? Marcus called out, having heard the announcement thanks to his enhanced human hearing. What am I? An escape lab experiment. Aren't you? Veltar squeaked from behind his shock absorption suit, which he was now using as a full-body shield. Marcus laughed while maintaining his blistering pace. Not last time I checked. Though, to be fair, my species did kind of accidentally domesticate ourselves through agriculture and civilization. Does that count? The aliens exchanged terrified glances. Accidental self-domestication implied that wild humans were even more dangerous than this already terrifying specimen. Dr. Zethka was now taking readings so fast his instruments were overheating. Impossible. His lactic acid levels are actually decreasing. His muscle efficiency is increasing with sustained exertion. This being is operating on metabolic principles we don't understand. Maybe you should ask him, suggested Professor Quinda weakly. Ask the predator to explain his hunting adaptations? Dr. Zethka's voice cracked. While he's actively demonstrating them, Marcus completed his 7-kilometer and noticed his audience was looking a bit peaked. Hey, is everyone okay over there? You all look kind of pale. Well, paler than usual. We are experiencing species-wide existential crisis, Clixon admitted, his translator somehow managing to convey both terror and resignation. Your casual display of predatory capabilities has shattered our understanding of biological limitations. Predatory capabilities? Marcus slowed slightly, though his version of slowing was still faster than most aliens could sprint. This is just an exercise, guys. I'm not hunting anything. But you could, Cyrano whispered. You could chase any of us until our hearts exploded from fear and exhaustion. The thought had honestly never occurred to Marcus, but now that she mentioned it, yeah, probably. He could definitely run down any creature in this gymnasium without breaking a sweat. The realization was both enlightening and slightly disturbing. Well, when you put it like that, I guess I see why you're all freaked out, he said, maintaining his easy lope. But honestly, humans don't usually chase down aliens for sport. We've got better things to do, such as... Veltar asked from behind his protective suit. Marcus thought about it. Video games, mostly. Pizza. Arguing on the internet. You know, civilized stuff. The concept of an apex predator species choosing pizza over hunting was somehow even more terrifying. It implied they were so successful as killers that they could afford to be lazy. As Marcus rounded the track for his 8-kilometer, Academy security finally arrived. 3 heavily armed guards in full combat armor took one look at the human effortlessly maintaining superhuman speed and immediately called for backup. Control, this is Security Team Alpha. We have eyes on the biological hazard. Request immediate deployment of Category 12 containment specialists. Marcus heard the transmission and nearly tripped from laughing so hard. Category 12 containment specialists? For gym class? You guys are incredible. Professor Quinda floated over to the security team. Perhaps we should avoid antagonizing the Deathworlder while he's exhibiting heightened physical activity. Heightened physical activity? Marcus called out, Lady, this is my cool-down pace. You want to see heightened physical activity? Wait until I hit the weight room. Every security guard immediately began backing toward the exit. Did he just threaten to demonstrate enhanced strength capabilities? One of them radioed in panic. I think he was just making conversation. Another replied uncertainly. Marcus completed his 9th kilometer and decided to really show off. He began running backward, maintaining the same impossible pace while facing his terrified audience. This is fun, he announced cheerfully. I should do this more often. Do you guys have any obstacle courses? Maybe something with climbing walls or rope swings. The mental image of Marcus navigating obstacles at superhuman speed while maintaining casual conversation sent several security guards into tactical withdrawal positions. Dr. Zethka was now openly weeping over his instruments. His efficiency is still improving. After 9 kilometers of sustained high-intensity exercise, his body is becoming more effective at converting energy to motion. This violates thermodynamics. Maybe Deathworld physics work differently. Professor Quinda suggested weakly. Marcus started his final kilometer and decided to end with a flourish. He began sprinting, not the sustained lope he'd been maintaining, but an actual, full-speed sprint that turned him into a blur of motion around the track. The gymnasium fell completely silent, except for the thunderous sound of his footfalls and the increasingly frantic beeping of medical equipment monitoring the alien's vital signs. He crossed the finish line with a time that would have set records on most worlds and caused several alien students to require emergency counseling. As he slowed to a stop, barely breathing hard, the silence stretched on until it became almost unbearable. Finally, Marcus looked around at his traumatized classmates and realized he might have overdone it slightly. "So," he said, grabbing a towel to wipe off the light sheen of sweat that was apparently the only sign of exertion he was going to show. "What's next?" "Strength assessment." Half the remaining aliens fainted on the spot. Professor Quinda's voice came out as a strangled whisper. "Perhaps we should postpone the remaining assessments until we can recalibrate our equipment." "Recalibrate it for what?" "For measuring the physical capabilities of a walking natural disaster," she admitted. Marcus grinned, showing those predatory teeth again. "Lady, you haven't seen anything yet. Wait until you meet my sister. She's actually athletic." The gymnasium erupted into chaos as every remaining alien began screaming for emergency evacuation. Security guards drew weapons they knew would be useless. Medical personnel started preparing for mass casualties. Through it all, Marcus stood calmly, toweling off, completely oblivious of the fact that it had just redefined an entire galaxy's understanding of what biological entities were capable of. As the evacuation alarms began blaring and aliens fled in every direction, Marcus looked around the rapidly emptying gymnasium and shrugged. "I guess class is over," he muttered to himself. "And they said gym would be boring." Behind him, emergency broadcasts were already going out to every world in the Galactic Alliance, warning them about the discovery of a new apex predator species that treated impossible physical feats as casual recreation. Marcus Webb, average human and below-average Earth athlete, had just become the most feared being in known space. And he still had no idea why everyone was so upset about a simple 10-kilometer run.